Today on Gold Chain Studios we're mixing heavy beatdown guitars. Welcome to Gold Chain Studios, the channel for heavy and brutal tones. My name is Floor and today will be a mixing tutorial about distorted guitars and more specifically heavy beatdown guitars. We dive into a mix that I've recently done for a band called Final Words. It's a simple setup with two DI tracks, one left, one right, and we're gonna go over how I process the guitar tone and how to make it stand out in the mix. Please consider subscribing to this channel as I'm planning to make a lot more videos about gear, mixing tutorials and reviewing plugins. At the end of this video I will give away a little bonus, but for now let's make some brutal guitar tones. As I mentioned, for this tutorial we will be using a mix that I've done for Final Words, their latest single Topped with a Glock. Make sure to check them out, I've added their Spotify link in the description as well as all their socials. Now let's have a listen to this mix. So we have two DI tracks, one left, one right. I've panned them all the way to the side as you can see here. For the main tone we are using the AHM 5050 from Audio Assault. It's modeled after the PV5150, which is typically used in this style of music. The cool thing about this plugin is that you can switch between the 6L6 and the EL34 versions of this amp. But for this one we're using the 6L6. Of course, the red channel, for the settings we have the gain up to half, so that we have a bit more of an overall tight sound. EQ is 666 of course, and the presence and the resonance we have pretty high up. Let's head over to the pedal section. We have a low-high booster engage that comes with the plugin, as well as the tube screamer. I almost always have a tube screamer in front of any amp, because what I like to do is to dial the gain of the amp back and then boost it with the screamer. If you have the drive set to a minimum and the level all the way open, the tone to taste, it will give you a really smooth boost. For the cap we are using the one that comes with it. It's a 4x12 AHM 5050 and we have nothing engaged in the effect setup. Let's have a listen to how that sounds by itself. So let me pan this guitar a bit to the middle so that we can focus on the next thing, which is pre-EQ. This is something I like to do before the DI signal is hitting the amp. With this EQ we are basically shaping the DI signal of the guitar, and this affects the way how it's being processed by the amp. So the first thing I like to do is to pump a lot of low end in there, so that when the guitar rings out a bit, the low end stays a bit more consistent. I'm looping a section of the guitar so that we can do some comparing. Next we EQ the low mids. What I'm looking for over here is the muddiness. I'm gonna search for it by boosting some frequencies. So we see that we get a lot of mud around the 300 Hz. Now that I found where that is, I'm going to cut it until it sits just right. Now it already has a lot more definition. The last thing we look at is the high mids. Here I'm looking for that scratchy kind of sound. We're doing the same method as I did with the low mids. You don't want to overdo this, but it helps a lot to make the guitar cut more through the mix in the end. Now let's do some comparing. We have one other pedal before the amp. This is the Bratwurst pedal. This is basically a free fuzz pedal, but as you can see it's not turned on right now. This is because we use this as a booster on those heavy beatdown parts. I have automated this to turn on whenever necessary. Let's go to one of those sections. This orange line here indicates when it's bypassed and when it's turned on. Let's have a listen. These two guitar tracks are linked to a bus output, where I have a couple more plugins to help the guitars cut more through the mix. As you can see, I have a bunch of EQs here, but they all have their own function. Let's start at the first one. This one is actually a mid-only EQ. What I do here is to bring out more of those chucks and a bit of the presence. So as you can see, I boosted the low mids and the high treble frequencies. Let's have a listen. Now the trick here is to have the same boost but then cut in the side frequencies. This will balance it out and make more space in the mix. So as you can see, the exact same frequencies but then cut it instead of boosted. So after that we have one more EQ to clean up the overall spectrum a bit. That's this one, just like a basic stereo EQ. As you can see, it's just a high and a low pass filter set to taste, and with these slower type of songs I don't want to cut out too much of the low in the guitars, because it makes it sound much more fuller with the bass. I also cut out some of the highs. I typically search for that high sizzle and cut until it sounds a bit more tight and roundish. Then I like to listen to the full mix and add a bit more treble where necessary. Next up, let's talk exciters. These will add some harmonics to the overall sound of the guitars. The first one I'm using is again from Audio Assault. This is a basic setup that just works for me. Some different types of tubes, and most of them are like half mixed in, except for the low mids as you can see. Overall this gives a bit more of a tube amp type of feel to it, and it helps a lot with cutting through in the mix. Let's listen. Here I have another exciter from Ozone, where I'm mixing in again a couple of different tubes, just because I want to sound this a bit more over the top. The main focus here is to bring back some of that sizzle that we cut out earlier. Lastly, we have a multi-band compressor on the end of the chain. This is often being used to tame the low-end build-up when the guitar player is hitting heavy palm mutes. As you can see, we have bypassed everything except the first compressor section from 20 till 200 Hz, because that's where those palm mute ranges are. From there on, I adjust the compressor threshold to taste. And of course you can also automate the threshold if you only want to have it on certain sections. And that is how I mix brutal guitars. Of course it really depends on the song, style and type of music that you're trying to mix, but in general this is a way that works for me. If you like this song, make sure to check out Final Words. They got this song out on Spotify and all other streaming services. I put all their links down below, make sure to check them out. As a bonus, I'm giving you this guitar tone that we crafted here today for you to download as a NAM profile. You can download it in the description below. If you're new to the NAM modeler, make sure to check out my previous video where I explain everything about it. And if you have any more questions about this video, make sure to drop them in the comments and I answer them as soon as I can. Thank you all so much for sticking with me. The response to the first video has been incredible. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm working on a lot more videos for you. If you like this one, make sure to drop a like and tell me what you would like to see next. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next one.